Today is the anniversary of the full-scale invasion by Russia of Ukraine, and we mourn those lost. We continue to condemn Russia's illegal and immoral war, and we can stand with Ukraine. And the government's demonstrating that by what we are doing. In addition to what we've already provided so far, we're providing an additional defence capability, uncrewed aerial surveillance, and I have overnight issued more sanctions against Russia, against 90 people and organisations, which take our sanctions to in excess of 1,000. So it's a very heavy sanctions regime against a government which is chosen to engage in an illegal and immoral war, breaching sovereignty, breaching the UN Charter. That's why we all have to stand against Russia.
Do you believe that sanctions regime is biting in Russia?
It's a very heavy regime, and it's a regime which reflects the actions of many in the international community, other like-minded partners. Look, this is a tough war. This is a war with incalculable loss. This is a war which, unfortunately, has continued, and Ukrainians are defending their country with their lives. Their bravery and their courage is something we all honour.
Now, overnight, the NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg, Minister, said that he and his organisation have seen signs of China considering supplying arms to Russia. What do you think of that? And if that was to happen, what consequences should China suffer?
What I would say is that Russia is a permanent member of the Security Council. It has a special responsibility to ensure that international law, including the UN Charter, which protects everyone's sovereignty, is protected. This war, waged by Mr. Putin, is an attack on sovereignty, and it is an attack on the UN Charter. So we would urge China to do all it can to not only not escalate this conflict, but to end it.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken says that if China was to supply arms, he's talking about consequences. Do you believe there should be international consequences if China was to supply arms?
Look, I think the global community would be put in a position where there would be widespread condemnation of such an action. But look, I'm not going to be drawn into what would happen. What I want to say is it shouldn't happen.
You're in the region meeting a range of Pacific Island leaders. Minister, how would you describe the current state of relations between Australia and the Pacific Islands?
Look, well, from our perspective, we've been out in the region, we've engaged more, we've listened more, we've obviously got a much more sensible and ambitious position on climate, which is the central issue, the most important national security and economic issue facing Pacific Islands. We've engaged, and it's fantastic to be here. One of the really positive developments ahead of this Pacific Islands Forum is, of course, Kiribati, which left the forum last year, coming back into the forum. That's something we've been supporting. We're really pleased that has occurred because, as I said yesterday to a number of the leaders, we're stronger together.
Speaking of the region, of course, lingering concerns about China's ambitions in the region. Overnight as well, the US announced it is quadrupling the number of troops it will have on the ground in Taiwan for training purposes. Amid rising tensions, of course, between the US and China after the Chinese spy balloons and a range of other things. What do you think of that move to increase the number of troops, American troops in Taiwan?
Look, on Taiwan, it's very clear what we want is the maintenance of the status quo. We don't want any party to unilaterally alter the status quo. And one of the things that we have been calling for, which is consistent with President Biden's own words, is to urge both the United States and China in particular to ensure they have guardrails to manage their competition. The region, the world can't afford the great powers engaging in unrestrained competition. Certainly President Biden makes it, and Secretary Blinken has made clear they understand that. And we would want there to be engagement between the two major powers, the two great powers, to ensure there is no escalation.